Welcome back to Conversations with Kayumuzi. My name is Lisa Kayumuzi Rabuni, and we are at Design Hub Kampala, which happens to be the home of our podcast. Shout out to Net Studios, who makes all of this happen. Again, we've got a guest in studio, and this is Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We're going to get into her work and all that she does when we're getting into the topic. However, let's start with everything else that we talk about. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the plug, because I give you stuff that you should definitely be listening to, watching, reading. It depends. So the plug for this week is a podcast, and the podcast is The Spread, specifically episode 67, where they talk about body count, big dicks, and masturbation. Hilarious content. This is the first time that I watched this podcast. I know that the presenter is Kenyan, and she tackles multiple conversations that are, out of the norm when it comes to pleasure. So that's something interesting that you can get into for your week and maybe binge on a couple other of her episodes. The gist of the week, the first being Chloe and Tristan getting back together. I need your thoughts, because I had a lot to say. I had a lot of thoughts when I saw this. So she posted for his birthday, called him her best friend and all these other, sweet nothings, and she wrote, "We've been through everything together." Listen, friend, you've been through everything together because he cheated on you and disrespected you not once, not twice, multiple times. Is that everything that you guys are ready to deal with? Tell me, what are your thoughts?
I think ultimately we need to remember that Jordan had been in the family for years.
Yeah.
And she had practically been part of the family. They'd go together on so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it that at that stage, in any family, not just that family, in any family, that person is supposed to be looked at like family,
Yes.
So, and even if the person is not family, you've got to hear them out because they're your friend.
Exactly.
So you don't hear her out. And when you listen to her talk on the Red Table,
mm-hmm.
she really gives an elaborate scenario of what exactly happened.
Mm-hmm.
But, Tristan is taken back, and the damage that was caused by the family on Jordan herself, both personally and I take it professionally as well, was not accounted for. No one did anything, no one reached out, and yet Jordan kept reaching out so many times.
Yeah.
So that is not sisterhood, honestly.
It's not
sisterhood. I think you need to hear people out first.
Yeah. I just anyway, clowning might be some people's preferences, and it seems it's Chloe's, but Love and Light. I know she said off air that she thinks it's a publicity stunt because their show is about to end. I was a firm watcher of the Kardashians content, but after the Jordan situation, yeah, you guys are not good enough people for me to spend time with. The second part of our gist is the unfortunate death of President Magufuli of Tanzania. And not necessarily speaking to that, because everyone must have their hot takes. Wherever he's gone, he find whatever he deserves. But I do want to talk about the fact that Tanzania has their first female president, who is Her Excellency Honorable Dr. Samia Suluhu, who is the acting president of the United Republic of Tanzania, the second female president in East Africa. The first was Sylvie Kiningi, who became the acting president of Burundi in 1993. She led the country during the most horrible civil war. So I'm giving both because there's been a common mistake that everyone who's posting is making, saying that Dr. Samia Suluhu is the first East African female president. She is the second. But also the irony here is the fact that the late Magufuli was a very misogynistic man. And funny enough, it's a woman who's in his, who's taking over after him. So I'm like, see, karma, it comes around.
It does come around, and given the fact that he has died during the COVID period and what he did with the COVID saga in Tanzania,
mm-hmm.
going against all warnings and declaring Tanzania COVID-free, it begs a big question.
Yeah,
it does. It begs a very big question.
So when people say what goes up must come down, in peace. Okay. All right.
It's what you say.
Okay. maybe it's why something important hit me because I was just saying, how can you say rest in peace for that man? Was he peaceful? Anyway, so I have Cynthia here in studio with me. Cynthia, please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. My name is Cynthia Stacy Wambusi, and I'm a young feminist. I'm very, very passionate about mental health, and it's what led me to start MindBloom, a mental health company that deals with depression, stress, and anxiety in workplaces, but also for personal plans.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about depression today, especially because I said we're doing Women's Month and we're going to do mental, physical, and all these other things. So, MindBloom, I like the name. Why MindBloom?
Because we all like to be in situations where our minds are blossoming. Yes, everyone deserves that. Everyone wants that. And it's the ultimate life for anyone. No one wants to be sad. No one wants to be depressed. No one wants to be going through anxiety. No one wants to deal with stress.
Yeah.
You know, and to have a mental health space that just tells you can come here and blossom in a safe space, I think that's very, very important.
Okay. So you talked about personal plans. What are those?
Personal plans is where we deal with a person individually. Yes. So if someone walks up to us and after our different assessments, say we conclude that the person is going through, say, depression, we'd have a plan designed for that person in specific, with that person as well.
Okay.
Yes.
And work-based plans?
Workplace plans is just for creating mentally safe spaces in the workplace. You've heard of the scenarios where someone is just like, oh, Monday. The person loves what they do, but being at work in the workplace is just stressful for them. And not because it's a bad place to be, but probably the work culture does not support this person to grow. You've been to workplaces where some people feel suffocated, or where some people feel like they're bullied, or for instance, how do you cater for a young mother that has just had a kid and has come back to work?
Yeah.
How do you cater for such a person? Because such a person is very susceptible to postpartum depression. And in as much as a workplace is not supposed to cater for that, the person is supposed to take the personal initiative to do that. The mental state of that person definitely affects the productivity at work. And if that is affected, then there's other people on the team that are also affected. Yes, so you'll find an overlap somewhere, or people dragging and pulling effort somewhere because someone is not in a space where they feel like they're being their best.
Okay, I hear that. Okay, that's great. That's great work that you're doing for personal and work plans. So let's get into depression. What would you define depression as, or what's the definition of it?
Depression is it's a series of miserable feelings, just sadness. It's like, I can describe it as let me be graphic here a bit. Imagine falling through a deep, deep, dark pit. You're trying to, scramble and try to like grab onto the light, but there's no light anyway, and you just keep falling down, 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 down so fast, and there's nowhere to hold. That's literally what your mind is going through. So depression is a series of these sad, miserable feelings over, you could say, over a period of 2 weeks, depending on what the person is going through, what the symptoms are. So I could go through some of the things that someone is experiencing during depression. Loss of weight or gaining, but in a very short time. And it's usually extreme, I have to mention that. Then there's too much sleep or very little sleep. There's, like I said, feeling sad, like really, 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 really sad. Sometimes over nothing, you're just sad. Sometimes you have the negative thoughts also coming in over and over and over and over again. And then suicidal thoughts. And then you have loss of interest in the things that you usually love. So let me give an example. Say someone loves to sing, and they're passionate about it, and they're so good at it, and they find fulfillment in doing that. You know how it's so good to do something that you're passionate about. It makes you feel really good, but you can't even get yourself to do that anymore. And then there's unwillingness to do anything. You have no interest in anything at all, not just what you love. So if you have like 5 of those, for most of the days for over a 2 weeks period, then it's definitely something that needs to be checked out.
Which you need to look into.
Yes.
Okay. That makes okay. So I was just about to ask, when you gave the graphic example of falling into a deep pit, I had a conversation with someone and they said maybe you can. They said they choose to take preventative measures for depression. Is it possible to take preventative measures for depression?
Yes, it's possible. It's actually advised to do preventive measures because you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. It's not like there's a demographic and they're like, okay, if you fit in this group of people,
you're definitely
going to be depressed at some point in your life. It happens differently for everyone, but what I encourage people to do a lot is to take preventive measures. When you take preventive measures, if you're faced with a certain situation that normally would have broken you down, you can definitely know how to cope and how to go about it. But if you're not prepared for it at all, because you've not, I keep telling people repetition rewires the brain. So if you keep repeating these different things, when you're faced with such a stressful situation, that usually would have been a trigger for depression.
But this is if you've already experienced depression, right?
No, even when you haven't.
Okay.
Even when you haven't. You've met people who can deal with stress, a very big amount of stress, and it doesn't really affect their minds. It doesn't shake them so much. And then you found people who can't deal with any kind of stress at all. Yeah, but it doesn't mean there's a problem because stress is normal. Yeah, at some point you definitely get stressed from different times, But if you've been practicing different preventive measures over time, even when you haven't been depressed at all, ever in your life, if you've been practicing preventive measures...
What are the preventive measures?
Mostly it's the same like coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Some people do meditation, mindful meditation.
Okay.
Some people do physical activity with intention.
Yes.
With intention. You're like, okay, today I'm working out and I have to be happy because I'm working out. Because, saying and also manifesting things. Keep giving yourself affirmations every morning. Just saying, I love you to yourself every morning. It might sound silly at first, but it can create a very big difference in your life over time. To keep repeating it. Yeah, if you keep repeating it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of stereotypes that our society has around depression. It's a white people's thing. It's not real. You're just sad. Some people say, you're just sad. You're exaggerating it. What are the different stereotypes that you, as someone who works in the field, has been able to notice?
Some of the stereotypes is you'll be called spoiled. You'll be called lazy. You'll be termed as someone who just doesn't want to do something. You'll be called, like you said, it's a white people thing. It's mostly known as a white people thing. I don't know, probably because the media has portrayed it that way, not intentionally, of course, but when you find most of, say, the movies that are, expressing something to do with mental health, it's mostly from the white people, not the Ugandans. I've not seen many movies that cover mental health in Uganda. It doesn't have to be direct. It does not have to be direct. And mental health is so expensive.
Yes.
And not just financially, not just financially, but on your mind as well and on your body as well. It can affect your physical health as well. So it's definitely important to take care of it, not just because you're waiting for something. I'll give an example. We tend to, you find people that work out a lot. Oh, I'm working out, I need to keep fit, I need to be healthy. Not because they've been in a situation that has forced them to work out, but it's also a preventive measure.
For a later time when I might need my body.
Aside from looking attractive and whatnot, happiness also makes you look attractive. So.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so what are the telltale signs that you've seen with people who are depressed? I know a lot of, because mental health is expensive, a lot of people, when it comes to depression, tend to self-diagnose. Guys, the word has failed. Anyway, they tend to under the word, insert the word, when it comes to depression. So what are the telltale signs?
Okay, first I'd like to address something before I go to the telltale signs. people lately, especially in Kampala, because I've been talking to so many different people, people have reduced depression to something so simple, like a mere sadness. There's a difference between feeling depressed and experiencing depression.
Yeah.
So depression is so complex that in most cases, say one specific event on its own may not be enough to get you to slip into depression. There's few of those experiences where just one is enough, say like extreme grief,
Yes.
you know. But let me give an example. Say in the month of March, we're now in the second week.
Yes.
Yes, so at the beginning of March, you lose your job. 2 days later, you lose your mom or you lose your dad. And then a few days later, say, you know, you're getting a divorce. So in such a short time, those 3 different traumatic experiences, they are definitely going to drive someone into depression. And probably the divorce was what tipped this person off. That's what just sparked it, but it was already a fire waiting inside. So that is mostly what happens with depression. Of course, there's those cases where sometimes there's no cause at all, you know, it's just your hormones playing around with you, and sometimes probably genetic and whatnot. But the telltales, usually, like I said before, you lose interest in things that normally gave you life. You have no interest in them at all. You don't even have the zeal to do it. You don't even have the zeal to do anything. Even something as simple as getting out of bed can be so hard.
Yes.
So there's that, and then there's loss of appetite or increased appetite. There's insomnia or extreme sleep. You just can't stop sleeping, but mostly it's just an escape thing. And then you'll find that people are having negative thoughts all the time, repetitive negative thoughts. And then you'll find a persistent trend of sadness in this person. You'll find that this person is sometimes physically weak. So sometimes someone will tell you, man, I'm having a migraine. I've been having a migraine for like a month. Sometimes it's definitely a real health problem. Other times it is a real health problem, but your mental health is what's causing that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is why I was saying before, your mental health definitely does affect your physical health as well. Then the worst case scenario, this is one sign that I don't wish for anyone. Suicidal thoughts. They can be passive or they can be active.
Okay.
That is a law that I don't wish for anyone, because by the time you get suicidal, it's really, 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 really burdening you.
Yeah.
You also find that these people tend to self-isolate.
Yes.
You also find that these people tend to engage in activities that are self-harming or extreme activity. You know, there's people experience depression differently. There's the person that's going to isolate completely. They'll withdraw from everything. They have no zeal at all. And then you'll find the person who is all over the place.
Okay. I think a lot of Kampala people tend to have, I'm going to make a big assumption, tend to have that one. A lot of people are dealing with stuff, but because we move regardless. We move regardless.
You have to move, of course.
Are there types of depression?
Yes, there's different types of depression. There's major depression, where you have all those signs, and in some cases they call it clinical depression. You have all those signs and you've been diagnosed, and it's a systematic thing. That's the most common, I think. Also an assumption. Then you have postpartum depression, that is after birth. It's actually surprising men actually go through it as well.
Yes. Wow, tell me more.
Yes. For some men, it's just watching, birth happen. You're just like, whoo, big change in my life. And then for some people, seeing I don't know. Can I say vagina on?
Yes. It's a body part.
You know how Uganda is. You know how Ugandans are. For some people, for some men, seeing the vagina in that form, with a head popping out and a baby's coming out of it, and someone can get so stressed over that, and it may take a while to recover from that
people
experience.
Have those experiences where it's literally the sight of a vagina is traumatizing to them because they like in their head, it's back to that.
Yeah, you're just like, can't even have sex because it's too much. I can't imagine that happened. Yeah.
Okay. And then postpartum, and then?
Postpartum, then there's the premenstrual depression. That one is usually mild. And then there's the persistent depression. That one, if you've had depression for, say, 2 years or more, so that is persistent. It just keeps, coming. It's right there. And then there's a psychotic depression. That's where people have different experiences. On top of their depression, there's psychotic experiences to it as well, like hallucinations, or you find that someone just completely blacks out. Yeah, and then there's bipolar disorder as well. That one, with bipolar, you have extreme lows and then extreme highs.
Yes.
Yeah, so those are some of the different types of depression. Then there's seasonal depression, in that you'll find that during the colder times of the year, people tend to get more low.
Okay.
They tend to feel more low during that time. But for some it happens differently. For some people, it could be Christmas. That's just a trigger. Or for some people, it could be a different time of the year with a different something happening.
That is attached to it. Okay.
Yes, and then there's situational depression. That's usually caused by experiences.
Okay.
Yes.
So now that you've spoken about things like seasonal or situational depression, I want to get into triggers. What are those when it comes to depression?
Well, a trigger is basically something that causes you to experience this emotion so freshly all over again. It's like a spark. So what happens is, say a girl probably has been raped before. You'll find that, let me give a scenario. She was in an Uber, she's going back home, and then she's raped. So what could trigger her is being alone in a car with someone, or she could be triggered by that road.
That it was, okay.
Yes, where the rape happened. She could be triggered by that road. Or maybe there was a song that was playing when she was being raped, or before she was raped, or after. That could also be a trigger. It's different for everyone.
Different people, okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's just different for everyone. For some people, it could be, you can actually find that maybe someone got bad news seated on a chair that looks like this.
Okay.
Very, very bad news. You'll find that a person looking at a chair that looks like this, or even just this color, it drives them mad. It just drives them mad, and you can't help it. You can't help it, because at that time it's like your mind has taken over. You can't control anything. It's terrible.
So how do you deal with triggers?
You learn how to cope. The best advice I'd give someone that's experiencing, say, depression or anxiety or stress or triggers. With stress, the bad stress that's chronic as well, I definitely advise the best is therapy. Is therapy. But even with the therapy, you need to learn self-coping mechanisms.
I just wanted to get into that. What are the coping mechanisms for depression?
Mindfulness has been known to reduce the rate of reoccurrence by about 40% in recent studies. So if you practice mindfulness, what mindfulness does is it helps you learn how to be in the present. Yes. So you've been in situations, all of us have experienced it where you're somewhere, but your mind is, it has wandered. But it hasn't even wandered in like one place. It has wandered in like 6 different places, but you've been there. So it teaches you how to bring your whole self into something. Are you going to work? Take your whole self to work. And do you experience things around you? It's mostly breathing exercises, actually. So how do you experience things around you? Are you aware of what is going on around you? Are you living in the moment? Because some of these things, like depression, is a past mood. And then when it comes to anxiety, it's a future mood. So when you keep shifting in between the two, there's definitely need to center yourself on the present. For some people, it's working out. Someone will tell you, if I can sweat it out, honey, I will be good. I'll come back feeling fresh. I'll come back very happy. I'll come back set. And then for some people, it's probably just happy experiences. Yeah, just happy experiences. For some other people, talking does help because it feels like it feels when you say yes, it's like you're taking them out as you speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you do think coping mechanisms work?
Yes, coping mechanisms do work, but they work differently for everyone. For some people, it's even just yoga. Someone will tell you, oh, I cope by writing. If I write, that's fine for me. Or someone will be like, I sing. Or someone will be like, I paint. Or someone will be like, I just read a book. Yeah, it's different for everyone. But as long as you do this with intention, if you attach an intention to your coping mechanism, you're definitely bound to feel good a lot later.
Okay.
But it has to be repetitive, not just one off. You're like, today I'm not feeling well. Okay, let's go to the gym.
It has to be something that's sustainable and you can work through it.
Yes, and you have to be practicing it your entire day.
Okay.
There's no point in you practicing these different coping mechanisms if you're not going to live those mechanisms during the day. Say you had a meditation session. It doesn't end there. That's the meditation is supposed to help you center yourself. You're supposed to find yourself, supposed to center yourself. So you're supposed to live through the entire day, even after that session, like that.
Okay.
That is how it works.
Okay, so what would your last remarks be when it comes to depression and dealing with it, and people who are actively, in the pits right now?
I think my last word would be find your coping mechanism. Because what works for someone else is not going to work for you. But if you can find it, it's very hard. I have to stress, it's very, very hard, very, very hard. But you can do it. You can do it. You keep repeating. Even if you do it like once a week as you start, even if you do it like once a week, that's a lot better than nothing. A lot better than nothing.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Conversations with Kanyumozi. I hope this has been able to help someone out there. Also, we have to remember to be mindful of if this is not a personal experience, but you've heard the telltale signs and you might have a friend or a relative who is going through something of the sort, something similar, then you can also be an anchor in that regard. Don't forget, a big shout out to Net Studios and Design Hub Kampala for making this happen. Till next week, bye-bye.